70% of the cases that these people deal with, they don't find a family. And even in the majority of the cases when they find family members, the family member is not interested in helping or arranging the funeral or having anything to do with the dead person. No, no. And so that's a cheat, you say. But I'm an optimist. And so for me, I wanted his work to be recognized, because I think we have to recognize that kind of humanity, that kind of dedication, that kind of understanding of the importance of human life. And for me, it's not really a movie about death, it's a movie about life and about the importance to remember some lives that are forgotten while they're being lived, especially at the end of their life. And this is how some of these people do their work. They do it with an enormous humanism, you know, with a true sense of the need to remember somebody's passage on earth before they're forgotten forever. And I didn't, although the film, when I started thinking about the film had to finish with an empty grave, because that's the story of the film, that's the subject of the film. I didn't want him to be alone at the end, and so I'm cheating. It's also it's cheating. It's also obviously a change in the language of the film for the last 20 seconds or 25 seconds of the film, because you go from what is a naturalistic or realist language where there is no anything surreal or anything metaphysical in it, to something which is. And some people accept that change in the last 20 seconds, and some people say this is a different movie. And I think it's the same movie, and actually I think it's quite, and if I say so myself, I'm not being modest, but it's quite brave, because it's a bit risky. It's a risky thing to do, but I think he deserved it. So. Even before I did all the, once I read the article and I got interested in the issue, and I started thinking about what the film was. The film was A Lonely Grave, so the first image and the last image of the film had to be the same, basically. And immediately I wanted that lonely grave to be recognized. So it started really before I did a year of research with people who do this job, and all sorts of other small research to do with the secondary, third kind of level characters. But it was always there. No. I mean, actually, let me rephrase that. I wrote it for Eddie. I worked with Eddie 10 years ago on I produced a film about Napoleon, and he played Napoleon's valet. And he had 6 lines, 3 scenes, and in those 3 scenes and 6 lines, he created a complete, absolutely wonderful character. And the wonderful thing he did is also give a humanity to the character of the Emperor, of Napoleon, with whom he had the scenes, that the character would not have had. So he made our voyage in the story of Napoleon much more interesting because of that. Anyway, and he does all this with doing nothing. I mean, obviously he does a lot, but Eddie's fantastic because he's the example of the generous actor who thinks about the role, who thinks about the situation, the story, and never about himself. So it's never about Eddie Marsan playing someone. It's about what does that someone need at any one point in the story. And he does it with the volume, if you want it, because in England he's used very often for tough roles, for nasty roles, for aggressive, violent people. But if you ask him to keep the volume really down, he can do that, but at the same time not disappear. He's still making you feel things, I think, but with the volume down, which is what I wanted for the film as a whole, and also what I like in general. Sometimes I like Pulp Fiction, but when I work on films myself, I tend to. It's very difficult to say because she's my ex-wife.
Oh. So it's answered. That's already answered.
It's, well, what, by the wife or by the ex? Which one is the answer? She's a fantastically talented musician. But she gives me much more, it's much harder to work with her than with other people, because she takes liberties with me that she doesn't take with other directors or other producers. Not because we are ex, but because we still work together. We see each other every day. We are very good friends. I asked her to do something very, very simple. So there is a musical phrase which is very, very simple. And in fact, there are two musical phrases. One is the ghosts, or the
variation
deads.
About the same thing.
Yeah, it's the deads, and then there is the main one. And they are sort of related, but not exactly the same. And there is relatively little music for an English film, if you want to call it English. I'm not sure it's English, because I live in London, but I'm not English. We try to keep music starting as late as possible and use it, not too much. Do I like it? I like it. I think it's simple, and I think it does what it should do, and it doesn't overcook it. Some people might find it a bit too sweet. I think it's all right. I think we kept it, especially, for example, if you look at the music, how it plays at the very, very end. Some people could have gone, more strings, more something, perfect, more this, more that, and instead we kept it.
Yes, I agree. Perfect.
Even the way we decided to shoot the last shot, it's a static camera, and we don't go close to the ghosts. They don't do anything special. They nothing. The volume is kept low, so from that point of view, I'm happy.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you talk about your research?
So what I mainly did is I spent a few months with two funeral officers, one from Southwark and one from Lewisham. They're both South London, very large boroughs, so they have a lot of people too, and quite poor boroughs. And with them I did two things mainly. I went to funerals, or I went instead of them to funerals that they had organized. And that's funeral, cremation, both things. And then I went to see houses of people who had died alone with them. They call them house searches. So you walk into a house, and their job is to try and see if there is any sign of family. So letters, and then bank accounts, and then bills, anything that can help them to trace somebody, and if they can't trace somebody, to make sure that the money is used for the funeral, and then if there is anything left over, it goes into the council, or if it's more than £500, goes to the treasury. Anyway, so I did many months of that, and with two people. And then I also went to one meeting of all the London people, so there must have been 30 of them. And there I asked them lots of questions, and it turns out that the majority of them don't go to the funerals they arrange, because they don't have time, or because they see the job as a bureaucratic job, as a practical job, and they don't see the human side of the job. So that's then I did different kind of research. I did research on isolation. I did research on statistics of where and why people are isolated. And then I did, all sorts of other things. Like, I don't know, I spent 2 days on a fish and chip shop. Every bit of the film has some, I read 3 books from soldiers who had fought in the Falklands, only just to have one line in the scene for the old soldier. One line. But you sort of need, I think, that you need the soil in order to have one little leaf of grass. Otherwise, the leaf of grass goes, if you see what I mean. So, a fair amount of research. And yes, in terms of the ashes being thrown away, that's unfortunately what happens after a certain amount of time. Because what they do is, first of all, they wait to see if there is a family member. If there is no family member, either they bury them immediately if there is a sign of religious, belonging to a religious something, you know, whether you're Protestant or Anglican or Catholic, then they bury you. If they don't have that, because it's cheaper, they cremate you. And then they keep the ashes. This is Lewisham, for example, the Borough of Lewisham. They keep the ashes for 3 months. And after 3 months, if nobody has turned up to claim the ashes, they take the April and May ashes and they dump them all in one grave or in one small grave. And that's what they do.
I think we're out of time, unfortunately.
And we're out of time.
Yeah, sorry.
You
So,
can continue, of course, like.
yeah, if you want to talk to them outside.
I'll talk to everybody.
Thank you very much.
Even the ghost. Thank you.